Hi there, Steve Kaufman. I'm going to do two videos today in answer to two of the most common questions or comments that I get both here on my YouTube channel and at my blog, the Linguist on Language blog, or even at Link. The first question, which I can deal with pretty quickly, is does it make sense to study more than one language at the same time? The second question is, how much of an advantage was it that I was born in Sweden, spoke Swedish till I was 5, and then moved to Canada? How much of an advantage was that to my language learning? So I'll deal with the second question in a separate video, and I'll address the question of studying two languages at the same time. My answer to this is usually that I have a lot of trouble studying two languages at the same time. I find that you need a lot of intensity to be successful at language learning. You have to, there's a sort of a transformation that takes place. You have to create some habits, some language habits in the brain. And so for that reason alone, I like to concentrate on one language. I find that I get hooked on the language that I'm studying. I've said in one of my pieces that learning a language is like falling in love. It's difficult to fall in love with two people at the same time, for most people. So I tend to get hooked on the one language. As an example, right now I'm still with my Russian and I'm trying to steal time away from it for Korean. I'm finding it difficult to do. It takes some special motivation. Like prior to my trip to Portugal, I was able to take time away from Russian and I spent 2 or 3 months on Portuguese. Recently I was going to do some videos in Spanish, so I got a hold of some Spanish audio books on Link and read them and listened to them. So I often say, at the very least I want to spend 80% of my time on my major language and perhaps 20% on the minor. And typically the minor language has to be one that I'm already fairly well along in. I can't start a language from scratch and hope to get anywhere if I'm only spending 20% of my time on it. That's me. Other people may like doing things differently. One other thing I should say about studying more than one language is wherever I do take time away from a language, which I've done in the past, like when I was on, I can't remember what, Cantonese, I took time away to really focus on Swedish. I did a lot of listening to Swedish audiobooks and reading because I was going to Sweden. When I come back from that period of intensive exposure to Swedish, all of my languages improve. Anytime that I take a break from language A and focus on language B for a month, 3 months, 6 months, a year, all the languages improve. So I very definitely believe that any language that you work at intensively, particularly with a big focus on input-based learning and also of using it, rather than sort of trying to learn rules and isolated word lists. If you're really in the language, whatever progress you achieve, you're going to keep. That's been my experience. A period of what I called in one post at my blog, benign neglect, is not going to damage you. You'll lose a bit of traction, you'll forget a few words, but when you get really back into it, you'll do better than before. So, in summary, I find it difficult to study two languages at the same time. I tend to focus at least 80% on one. The other 20% I can only really use to refresh languages where I already, am fairly well along. I could not undertake a new language or one where I'm at a very low level like my Korean just by spending 20% of my time on it. I need more. So my recommendation is to go in spurts, 6 months on one, then you can go 6 months on another. It's been my experience. And if you do that, you won't lose ground really in the first one. In fact, you'll probably improve in it. So there you have it. That's my answer on whether it makes sense to study more than one language at the same time. Thank you for listening.